But I'd like to welcome you all back to our Tuesday training sessions, and I'd like to wish all our Irish attendees a happy St. Bridget's Day. And I've been told that next year this will be a public holiday, so we won't be holding this. But that's the future. We can set goals for the future for that. So welcome, everybody. And I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Gerard Mannix as immediate past District Director to our call. Welcome, Gerard. Now, Nigel, I have known for a few years now. He is Area Director for Area 39, which is basically Birmingham and the sort of South Staffordshire, Shropshire area of England, the Midlands of England. He is a member of Bullring Speakers, which is in Birmingham. He has been past president, VPE, and lots of different roles there. And he's making a very effective job of being Area 39 Director. He's also very experienced in project managing, setting goals, that sort of thing. I've heard him before, I've been on a training with him before, and it was excellent, and you will learn something tonight, I promise. So, without me prattling on anymore, welcome, and I'll hand the floor over to Nigel. So please help me welcome Nigel.
Thank you so much, Danny. The combination of Birmingham and Bullring together often sounds like boring, as in boring speakers, but I hope that's not what we're going to be in for this evening. This session will be really interactive. We are going to use menti.com, and I've seen that Cameron has put the code into the chat. If you can jump on that, you'll have some fun as we go through this evening. There is a very short quiz. There's only 4 questions, but Danny assures me there is a top prize on offer. So before 8 o'clock this evening, I think at least one of you will be the winner. But I just want to share my screen at the moment, and just bear with me while I do that. So, okay, this is me. What I'm going to talk about this evening is all about making your 2022 goals stickier. So what do I mean by that? Well, of course, we're on February the 1st, and some of the pre-chat we had already is about New Year's resolutions going south. So we're going to take a look at why that is the case. But first and foremost, I just want to, again, just remind you of Menti. You can use a QR code on the screen there if you've got a mobile phone, but it works equally if you put the menti.com in on a tablet or an iPad, or maybe a separate web browser if you've got a multi-screen setup. It will make the rest of this presentation on goal setting a little bit more fun. So I know that Cameron's pumping it into chat as we speak for all the newcomers that come through. So let me carry on then. So what I'd really like to do is just get the mood of the people in the room this evening. So what you should find on your mobile device is the ability to move a little dot around on the screen. Are you a little bit unhappy? You're really happy? You're a bit angry? Or you're a bit despondent? Let's just try and find the mood of where we are before we start this evening, and see if it sets the tone for what I think is going to be a really great session this evening. So we've got a couple of people. Oh, we've got at least 5 in the good zone of being pretty happy, and that's good. A few not too sure. One's probably a little bit nonplussed. I've got less than an hour to convince you that this is worth listening to, but thanks for sharing that. It helps to put a mood on where we are right now. So, did you make your 2021? Did you make it into a 2020 win? Now, of course, it is February the 1st, as we famously said at the start of this meeting, and we have gone past Blue Monday, which I think is either the 2nd or the 3rd Monday in January, which allegedly is the most depressing day of the year because, of course, Christmas has finished. It's still dark. The Easter holidays are still too far away. We have to go back to work. The credit card bills start coming in, all very, very depressing. So no wonder that anybody that sets their New Year's resolutions on, let's say, December the 31st, falls well short of February and probably falls flat on Blue Monday. So what is it that makes really good goals? Well, I'm about to tell you. And what we're really going to cover this evening is in true Toastmasters fashion, it's just all in threes, basically. So we're going to be talking goals, goals, goals. What are they? Why do we need them? What do they do for us? And what happens when we achieve them? And what happens when we don't achieve them? But more than that, I'm going to sort of share with you some really great advice about making your goals far more memorable. When things become more memorable, you're more likely to stick at it. And I can tell you now that the tips I'm going to give you about making them memorable is actually blindingly common sense. But of course, as we all know in our lives, common sense is not always common practice. But let's see how we get on. And again, at the end of it, I'll leave you with some more tips and also some really useful reminders as well. So I'm trusting that that all sounds good. Just going to share into the room as we go. Again, please jump onto menti.com at 1356 4699 and we'll be having some fun. Now, I always like to start my webinars with a bit of a quote, and it's really unusual for me to choose a quote from myself, but I sort of melded this together a few years ago when I was training to be a coach. And my mission this evening for each and every one of you on this call is to turn what I would call an aimless wander into a purposeful chase. So what do I mean by that? Well, I really want to get you on the straight and narrow. Instead of that winding road you see in front of you, I want to get you on a 6-lane motorway, direct and straight towards where your goals are going to be. Now, to do all of this, just change slide. So I just want to spice it up a little bit here. The key about goals is specifically, you really need to know what you want. If you don't know what you want, as Lewis Carroll famously told us, effectively, any road will take you there. For anyone that's read business books like Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. You have to know where your journey is going. That end in mind, in my view at least, is that purposeful chase. So again, let's go on to Menti. Let's have a little bit of fun here, because what I really want to find out from the assembled audience that we've got, are you a goal setter? Are you a goal getter? Or are you a goal forgetter? So do you often set goals? Do you do it sometimes, maybe, little, never? Let's just get a temperature of the room to see where people are sitting at the moment. So we've got roughly 2/3 sometimes set goals. Oh, dropping now, 13, 10% always set goals. We've got an equal contingent that never set goals. I'll just leave it for a few more moments to let a few more people contribute to this, because I'm going to return to this question later in this webinar this evening to see if what I've shared has made any difference at all. But the good news is it does look like that pretty much 75 to 80% of the people here tonight have at least had a go and tried. And we will look into some of the reasons why we don't accomplish our goals. And is it good that we do? But thank you for people for participating in that. Let's just move a little further forward. So again, I just want people now, you've got an opportunity. I know it's a little bit fiddly on your phones. Just type in, what are some of your current goals? What are you working to try and achieve? And I'll just give you a few moments to do that. It might be something that you considered over last Christmas that you're going to do through into 2022. It may, of course, fallen by the wayside, but equally, it could be something that's right in your mindset right now. So we've got lose 1 stone. Excellent. Work-related. I'd just like a few more to come on the screen, because I do want to talk to some of these and perhaps invite people later on to mention about what you're working on here. Achieve IEng registration. Okay, that's pretty specific. That's good. Begin teaching languages. Lose weight. regular fitness. I'll tell you later in this presentation why using language, negative language like lose, is not a great thing when we're talking about goal setting, but I will come on to that. We've got peace of mind, we've got finish the garden, get my DTM. Well, I'm going for my DTM this year, and I will share with you how I make that goal memorable and how I bring it to life every single day. So this is some really great stuff here. A lot of them are health and fitness related. Clear all the piles of papers around me and get organized. That sounds like Danny Banks to me, but I'm not going to put a name on that one, I don't think. More speeches, quality time with family, make a CD. Excellent. Declutter my life. There's some really fantastic stuff coming through here, so thank you very much. I'll make some commentary on just this in a moment. First of all, I think we're going to move next to the first of our quiz questions. No, we're not going to move to the first of our quiz questions. I'm doing it live, and as Atul knows, it's been a year. So what are we going to talk about with goals, or what do goals give us? Does anybody want to unmute and just shout out and share with me what goals do for us in life?
Focus.
Focus, absolutely right. Focus and purpose.
Something to work towards.
Something to work towards, definitely, definitely.
Obsess.
Obsess, is that good? Obsess. I do like that term.
Prioritize.
Prioritize, yeah. Something that's important, I think, as well. Yeah, very good. Thanks for that input, by the way. But also it's about achievement. I saw a lot of things on that previous slide that talked about, you know, getting a DTM, doing more speeches, losing weight, those type of things. You want to get to something you want to achieve moving forward. So those, if you like, are those sort of goal statements. We've also got purpose as well, and I think that came out in the exchange we just had there. Gives that direction of travel, that sort of vector, if you like, about you know where you're going. And you know, one of the signs of happiness is having something to look forward to. So if you can set a goal into the future to say, I'm going to achieve this, then it does your well-being no end of good. And the final thing I've got on here, it gives growth. Now, of course, being Toastmasters, we know all about growth, and growth happens when you push yourself beyond your normal comfort zones. And there are more things which goals give us. I just wanted to keep it really succinct, concise and neat. But first and foremost, I think for me, the key word on this particular slide is purpose. Gives us something to get out of bed for every morning. Okay, and I guess most people can relate to that. So this is the first of the quiz questions, okay? So I just want to get as many folks as possible into this quiz. It's only 4 questions across the course of the next 30 minutes or so. It's just a little bit of fun. Originally, it was going to be bragging rights for the winner, but I think actually we've come up with a top quality prize either Danny or Brenda can share with us at the top of the hour. We've got 10 folks in there at the moment. I'll just give it a little bit more time if anyone else wants to jump in. I can see that Cameron's put the Menti code in there. You are able to use an alias if you want to be anonymous, or you can, of course, put your own name in. We will be following some leaderboards, and so we'll see how this is progressing. We get a few more people in. I'll just give it 1 more minute. This is quite exciting. It's good when we've got, we can fill the leaderboard of 10 places, which is really, really cool. So we're going to go for it, and let's go. So look on your phones or the device on which you're going to answer the Menti question. Yeah, here we go. So ideally, goals should be what? Should they be specific? Should they be measurable? Should they be achievable? Relevant to you? Or time-bound? What do you think? Very, very interesting, because of course, if anyone in the audience tonight has heard of SMART goals, that's exactly what these point towards. So all answers are correct. Now, for the purposes of the quiz, you're all going to score the right amount of points because you got it right. But tonight there's a difference, because whoever answered fastest will get more points as well. And we'll come on to find out about that in just a moment. And it's really interesting from this slide. And one of the big takeaways I'd like any of you to walk away with tonight, and I see that nobody has mentioned that goals need to be time bound. Well, absolutely they do. If we reverse back to those goal statements that came up on the slides just a few moments ago, none of them had a date. And if you have a goal without a date, it's effectively a dream. So for example, pre-COVID, I'd been going to Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam for years, absolutely loved it. But I was just going there in my head because I never said specifically by December 2019, I'm going to go to Bangkok. It never happened because I didn't draw that line in the sand. I didn't put my marker down. I didn't drive towards something. We've said already that we need purpose, but purpose it's never ending. You've got to put something in the ground to sort of aim towards. You have to have that target. So please just be mindful that when you set a goal, it's got to have that date. And I'll give you some interesting tips and reminders later to say that basically a goal without a date is simply just a dream. But anyway, let's get back to the quiz. Let's have a bit of fun now and see how folks have got on with this. So it's looking like James, I think. James from Justin from Lynn. It looks like an Atul. I know you know the answers to this because you did it last year and I haven't changed the questions. So I was expecting a bit of a better response there. But James, well done. You're in first place at the moment. And of course, this is still all to play for. We do have 3 more questions, but who's going to get them all right? Let's find out. Let's move forward. So here's a second of the quiz questions then. So let's go for it. I can't remember what the question is, if I'm completely honest. So goals, they are really good. They are better if they are what? If they're somebody else's, they're within your comfort zone, they're constantly reviewed, if they're out of your control, or if they're small and easily achievable. What do you think? Excellent. Well, I'm really glad that a proportion of you got that absolutely right. Goals have to be constantly reviewed. And it will be one of the things we'll be talking about in a short while, because of course, if you wind back to the start of COVID, we all of us entered 2020 with, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Then all of a sudden, the whole world was shut down. So for example, travel wasn't possible. So you couldn't have the goals where you were going to travel to a certain destination. And maybe the restriction on meeting people meant certain other goals you couldn't do. So you do have to reanalyze and possibly change the direction of travel for your goals. I just want to talk to just some of the other answers on this before I move on to the leaderboard again. So one thing, again, I'd like you to remember from this evening is you can't have a goal for somebody else. So, for example, you can't say, I would like my partner to be good at cleaning, washing, doing the lawn, whatever it might be, because, you know, what we'll learn from tonight's session is we're only in control of ourselves and there's very little we can control about anybody else. And I'd also like you to pick up on the fact that if you do something within your comfort zone, it becomes fairly discretionary. You'll either choose to do it or you won't. And if it's within easy reach, you know, there's no stretch, there's no growth, there's no learning. You're not really going to get much back from that particular thing. What you really need to do is push past your comfort zone into what's called the stretch zone, but not too far, because you can end up in the panic zone, which sits a little bit beyond that. But as Toastmasters, of course, religiously and very often we're all, outside of our comfort zone when, of course, we plan, prepare, do speeches, when we step up and do functionary roles in our club meetings, or even when we step up and step out to do contests and things like that. One element in there is out of your control. Again, it comes back to the fact that, you know, we'll come on to talk about control the controllables, and very often there's very little we are actually in control of. Just reading a note here from Matty on chat. My goal has been accepted to be Division D director, and that goal is to be Division D final. Okay, so we've got something really tangible, really specific coming in on there. But let's get back to the quiz, because I'm sure you're a bit like me trying to find out whether or not we've still got the same people at the top of our leaderboard this evening. So James, can you still make it? It looks like you can. It looks like, yeah, I think Justin's falling by the wayside a little bit, and we're going to get a new podium. So we've got Cal, L and TJ joining James there on the top 3 steps, but Jenny coming through fastest there. So there's a bit of competition coming in. Sue's doing particularly well. Justin, you've just fallen down the order a little bit more, but I hope you folks are having a bit of fun with this, and of course at the same time learning a few things, because there's one thing I've learned. I'm not a natural trainer, by the way, but what I've realized for myself is that when people are having fun and a bit of a laugh, learning becomes far more easily embedded. And just think of the times when you've had to learn things under duress. When you're doing tough exams and stuff, it doesn't stick in the same way that when you're having a little bit of fun. So let's move forward. So what I'd like to focus on now, just for the next 2 or 3 minutes, is why is it, do you think, that we don't achieve our goals? What is it that stops us? What is it that gets in the way? Maybe you've got some personal examples that you can put in there. Too large. That's a very interesting one. Very interesting. Not planned. Yeah. And nice comment there from Brenda in chat. We learn best in moments of enjoyment. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Not focused. Other personal distractions. Procrastination. Lose focus. Yeah. Fear. I'll come on to fear. I will come on to fear. Food tastes too good. There's a bit of a weight thing going on here this evening, but that's great. Wrong friends. Absolutely. And I'm going to quote at this point one of my favorite quotes that one of my fellow boring speakers, Adil, mentions from time to time. I think it's a quote from a guy called Jim Rohn, who was mentor to Tony Robbins, who said, "You are the average of the 5 people that you keep the most company with." The average of the 5 people that you keep the most company with. And of course, that works for positive, like-minded people that help you raise and grow your game. But equally, if you're out there with a bunch of degenerates, they can also bring you down a little bit as well. So not important enough. It's too hard. Oh, yeah, too big or too many. Well, first and foremost, what I want to talk to here is to say that fundamentally, I would encourage you to make your goals as big as possible. Now, listen, if we go back in the annals of history, back in the 60s, we had JFK talking about putting a man on the moon. And he said quite specifically, we're doing it not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And he also said, we're going to do it before the end of the 60s, which I think it happened in 69, did it, or something like that. And I think getting a man to the moon was probably the easier bit. I think getting them back safely was probably the bigger thing. And I just want to give you another couple of examples of really big goals. So you've got Bill Gates. Now, most people think of Bill Gates for everything he's doing for the planet, for vaccinations, for well-being and all this sort of stuff. But at one point, back last century, he was, of course, CEO of Microsoft. And I think in the early 80s, Bill Gates made a statement which sounds nonsense now, but he said he wanted a personal computer on everybody's desk in their home. And pretty much he did that before the year 2000 came. So it does beg the question, when you do your goal setting, what happens when you achieve it? Where do you go next? How do you set your next big site? And of course, Bill Gates has got other big goals he's moving towards. And of course, his compatriot, Steve Jobs, also made a very, very famous statement about putting a dent in the universe. Now, you can't argue that Apple, the most valuable company and brand in the world, have certainly made a dent, certainly in our universe, in terms of the cool products and services and lifestyle and experience that they bring to their consumers. You've got J.K. Rowling, an old typewriter and a big idea. And then, of course, you've got Elon Musk, not content with producing electric cars and trying to make the best of the planet as we have it. He wants to colonize Mars. And who would bet against him making that a partial reality, even in our lifetime? So my advice would be, make your goals as big as possible, make them overwhelming. Tony Robbins famously said that in a short term, we grossly overestimate what we can do. So for example, in 3 months, we try to cram too many things in. But he said on a longer plan and horizon, let's say 10 years, we grossly underestimate what we can do. So we don't set our targets far enough. And Matty, I'm just reading your comment there. You want to stay in bed till 1 p.m. That's a very specific goal. Thanks for sharing that. But some really good things on why we don't achieve our goals. It's probably the story we tell ourselves. We're not good enough. We're too young. We're too old. We're not fit enough. We're not clever enough. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough tools. And the one I really want to speak to here is really all around fear. Okay, so I just want to move to the next slide for this. So fear, I just want to share with you, and this is common to every single person on this planet. When they are born, and I'll give you a clue here, they're born with a fear of only 2 things. Only 2 things. Everything else we just make up in our head and believe it to be true. So does anybody, just please unmute and just shout out, anybody got any idea what those 2 fears might be that we're naturally born with?
Loud noises.
Sorry?
Loud noises.
Loud noises is the number 1 answer. Do you want to play or pass?
Falling is the other one.
Sorry?
Falling.
Falling, absolutely. So well done. They are in fact loud noises and falling. That is all we as humans are afraid of, with a born fear. Everything else I've just mentioned, the limiting beliefs of we're not good enough, we haven't got the right skills, we haven't got enough time, we haven't got enough support, you know, we're probably not fit enough or don't have the right tools, we're too old. These are constructs we mentally put inside our own head, frankly. So great, thank you for sharing all of that. So goals then, we've spoken about being really specific with them. So it's really all about getting clarity. It is back to Stephen Covey's begin with the end in mind. But equally, it's about going to the future, because goals are very future focused. It's stuff that you want to achieve in the future. They're not actions. It's something tangible that you want to get. So for example, we saw in the earlier list, I want to achieve DTM status, for example. So that's a tangible goal in the future that you're aiming for. And as I've touched about here and mentioned before, make the goal really, really big, but actually it's the breaking down of the goal into something more tangible and more sustainable and manageable and not too overwhelming. So for example, my classic thing that I talk about here, and I've probably got a few slides which talk about this, is all about running a marathon. So if, for example, I'm going to run a marathon in, let's say, 6 months' time, if I woke up tomorrow and said, oh, I've got all these things I need to do, I've got to work on the diet, the fitness, I've got to get the right equipment, I've got to get the sponsorship, the administration, the travel, all these type of things floating around in my head, it's just far too overwhelming. The best thing to do is to break it down into stepping stone journeys. What's the most important thing that you need to do first? It might be, for example, get into the fighting weight to run a marathon. And maybe as an output action from that would be to do a diet plan. So, you know, you need to get to, I don't know, a running weight of say 11 stone, 4 pounds or whatever that might be. So you've got a goal to arrive at. You're on that part of the journey, and then you can say to yourself, well, when I'm at that point, these are the sort of things I'm going to need for my training regime. This is how I'm going to build it up over time. And then what you're dealing with as you go through your journey, you're not dealing with a big thing all at once. You're just dealing with the smaller components which get you to that point. And in the same way, as you can see this slide at the moment, water exists in 3 states at room temperature. Okay, so we have the solid, which is the ice. we have the vapor, the steam, if you will, and we also have the liquid, which is water. Now, of course, when you look at it in that context, you get that hazy vapor. It's not very clear to see through. That's your big goal, if you like. And then as you come down from that, you've got the more fluid, the more agile, medium-term goal that gets you to your longer-term goal. But then you've got your solid ice. This is your specific, you can touch it, you can feel it, you get the shape of it, you know exactly what it looks like. That is your more immediate term goal. So I would just say, just to think about it in those terms, because don't lose sight of what you're aiming towards, but really just focus on that small part that's just directly in front of you. And I just want to take a bit of a pause at this point. Has anybody got any general questions I'd like to ask, or something that hasn't been clear in the first part of this session? Okay, I'll take silence as compliance. So I'll just carry on with what I'm going to do here. So a bit of a rhetorical question here. So we've learned about SMART, specific, measurable, achievable. Is it relevant to you? And of course, the most important one, time bound. Now, the reason I've asked this question is because no, I don't think SMART is enough when you're setting your goals. In my view, there are a few other components that I believe that you're going to need. And we've touched on one of them already. I call them smarter goals because the E and the R have got a play on words. And we've touched on one of them already, and it's to evaluate, really, you know, exactly where your goal is. Is it still valid for where you are? Again, the world's been turned upside down in the last couple of years. So maybe something you thought you were going to focus on isn't actually possible to achieve anymore. And together with evaluation, you also have to review. You have to monitor your progress. Is that goal still a stretch goal? Is it becoming too simple? Is it getting too far away? Do you need to reevaluate some of the stepping stone milestones that you have? So always bear in mind that everything with goals are dynamic. And it does lead to a point, it didn't come up on the last Menti question I had, but sometimes the reason we don't achieve our goals, quite frankly, is because sometimes the closer we get to achieving them, the less we want it, because it starts to become very real. And there's also that pressure of, now I've done this, what do I do next? I've been watching a few documentaries on Sky or Netflix, can't remember specifically, but there's one documentary on there about the 14 peaks, the 14 tallest peaks in the Himalayas. This guy and his small team went and conquered them all. Now, what do you do after you've done that? You know, sitting on a beach reading a book is hardly really going to cut it, you know. So what is that next big thing, essentially? And is it more about the journey than the destination? Because fundamentally, we talked about growth. It's about learning as we go through. Okay, so there's also, I know Toastmasters, we love 3s, but unfortunately this is a series of 4, and I'm just trusting that it's going to be easy to remember, because fundamentally there are other elements I believe that you will need to make your goals more memorable. So for example, your goals have to be possible. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're as old as I am, and I came to you and said, I'm going to be the next great British astronaut, well, it's not really going to fly, is it? It's not really going to work. I might go through some of the training, I might read a lot of the books, but the closest I'm going to get to a space rocket is maybe going to the Space Museum in Leicester, and that's about it. It has to be possible, but it's your definition of possible, nobody else's but yours. If you believe it's capable, you're capable, and you believe that you can achieve it, that's your version of possible. But you do have to be realistic with it also. We already talked about the fact it's got to be in the future. You know, we are not looking in the rear view mirror. We're not looking necessarily about what's happened in your life before. We're looking where you're going, moving forward. And because it's got that future focus, it's there, it's out there, it's something that you're working towards, an ambition to actually to conquer, in a sense. Here's a really important one. It has to be personal to you. So we touched on one of the quiz questions earlier. You can't set a goal for somebody else because frankly, we don't have any control over those guys. And if you try and do this and you try and impose, very often ends in failure. And what I would suggest is, I know that I'm talking about things being personal here, but in a work context, we get goals set for us. Now, what I would recommend is that you are part of that process for setting corporate goals, or wherever the goals are that you're going to be measured on, because if you're not part of that process and things are imposed on you, very, very difficult to achieve those. And I'd always recommend that you would, as part of that process, really insist that goal statements are smarter, because very often you get some sort of ambiguous, fluffy need to achieve this, and then you work for 11 months, then realize when you have your review that you haven't met it, even though it was all very cloudy and the world's moved on. So specific is good and gives you something really to focus on. But fundamentally, if you've got a personal goal, you are more likely to achieve it. And it's no mistake, by the way, that the world's most successful people are goal setters and goal getters. Okay, and there's a particular psyche they have, but it's all about achievement. It's all about maximizing their potential. It's about learning. It's about growth, taking them towards their future vision. Now, the final P I've got here is what I call positively stated. Now, I did mention earlier on when I looked at the list of a few goals coming in, people wanted to say, I want to lose a stone. Now, fundamentally, we don't want to lose anything, okay? Negatives are very bad for the mind. In fact, the mind can't comprehend negative. So, for example, picture on the screen, if I said to you, don't think of a pink elephant, to not think of a pink elephant, you've got to think of a pink elephant, okay? So it's like counterintuitive. So instead of saying, I want to lose a stone, to frame that goal statement in a more positive way, say something like, I want to be a fighting weight of 11 stone, 4 pounds. I want to fit into a size 32 jean. I want a shirt or blouse size of X, whatever it might be, and I want to look fantastic when I look in the mirror. That type of really positive statement. When we start talking about I need to lose this, I need to lose that, we need to frame it in a more positive way, because actually in our minds, when we start to think more positively, we're more motivated to do that. So other typical goals that come up is, you know, I want to quit smoking, I want to give up drinking. That's great. But if you say on the flip side, I want to be healthier so I can run, I don't know, 5K without feeling out of breath, giving up smoking may be one of the things that you do as an action to get you towards that goal. But giving up smoking in its own right, what does it give you apart from the fact you save a bit of money? Tie it onto some ambition that's far bigger than just giving up that one activity. So I trust that all makes sense. I'm happy to pause here at this point in time. If, in fact, I'll just take a quick look to the chat. Big goal from Matty, but achieving it over a longer period of time. Give yourself to achieve your time. Okay. Disagree with first P. Possible, would prefer probable. Wright brothers. Okay, they're pioneers of modern flight. Everyone said it was not realistic or achievable, but they ignored that feedback. It's a really great example. Thanks for that, Tom. And that also reminds me of Roger Bannister as well, because up until he smashed, was it the 4-minute mile back in the 50s, everyone was saying, this isn't possible, you can't do it. And then when the impossible becomes possible, months later, I wouldn't say hundreds of people smashed the 4-minute mile, but because that mental switch in their mind said it is possible to do, then people had to go and could start to believe a little bit more. So thanks for that, Tom, appreciate that. Is there any other questions from the floor at this stage?
Nigel?
Yes.
This is not a question.
Okay.
But last Saturday, I was asked to do a 20-minute workshop on VP membership. When I was asked, I didn't lean back, I leaned forward. I grasped it, and during the week beforehand, I put it together so that on the day, I just had no worries on it, just do it. It went fairly well, if I may say so. Now I have been asked by the division director, would I do contest chair at the division final? Again, I did not lean backward. I actually leaned forward, and I have now started my planning from that. The reason for this is because of Zoom. I'm getting to do things that I would never had the chance to do. So I am making goals and I am achieving goals, and I'm going to make the best of the opportunities that are coming my way. Thank you.
Well, Matty, thank you so much for sharing that. I love the way that you're facing the fear, saying yes, stepping up and just doing it anyway. And another great thing that you've shared there, of course, is you do one thing, you push yourself to a new level, and then you get asked to do other things. And that is, in a sense, a story of what I've done, because each time I do something I think I can't do, I have to go back and put a tick across an excuse as to why I'm not good enough, I'm not fit enough, I don't know enough, and all the rest of it. And I keep looking at that list saying, no, I passed that mark way back when, I'm moving onward and forward now. But thanks for sharing that really great live example. But it's only by the stretch, because clearly you moved outside of your comfort zone, you proved you could do it, your comfort zone is now expanding, you're being asked to do more. And the idea is to get your comfort zone as big as possible so that you feel confident and good about doing what you're doing. And again, for me, just a personal story. I mean, I've only been a Toastmaster just over 3 years. And 4 years ago, I would not in a million years have stood in front of Zoom doing this. I wouldn't even know the subject. I wouldn't have the life experience. In fact, if I joined this webinar, I would have been the guy that would arrive late to avoid all the small talk. I would have been definitely camera off, probably muted, possibly change my name on the screen. That's how sort of introverted and inward that I was in that sense. And what Toastmasters has done for me is to say, well, look, you know, you've got these skills, you've got these competencies. All you need to do is leverage them. You've got a message to share, people want to listen, and just put it out there and see what happens. You know, people will tell you if they like it or not. And again, going back to my quote about sharing, you know, the space with like-minded people, when you get that trusted advisors all around you, it does lift you when you do get that feedback. But again, thank you for sharing. I'm just conscious of time, so I don't want to go beyond 8. But I do want to leave you with some tips, okay? So I'm trusting that you're sort of putting it all together now and starting to think, yes, your goal needs to be smart, it needs to be specific, it needs to be evaluated, it needs to be reviewed. But first and foremost, and I touched on this right at the start, I saw a couple of goal statements about becoming DTM. Okay, so that's certainly one of my goals for 2022. And I'm going to talk as I go through these particular tips, how it made it real for me. So first and foremost, record it, write it down, write it as if you've achieved it. So for example, and here's my classic one about the marathon, there's my goal statement. You know, it's Sunday, November the 7th. I know it's last year, it probably didn't happen. I've just run the New York Marathon, very specifically where and how long it took me and how I'm feeling about it. And what I would encourage you to do is, if you can get your goal statement, whatever it might be, onto a post-it note, stick it on your fridge, stick it on your monitor, stick it next, I don't know, to the TV remote or whatever, so you constantly see it and it becomes that real tangible reminder. You might want to choose an artifact. So for example, some sort of medal to say, this is what I'm going to be holding in my hand when I've achieved this particular goal. It might be something to do with the city you're working in. You might, like what I've done here, write your own newspaper headline in the future. You know, pretty much, you know, give yourself an A star, then live up to it. And it's amazing how motivational and positive simple things like this can be, because you're setting your future state. And even just thinking about these sort of things, I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck starting to rise, because it does flood your body with all those happy chemicals about getting you primed and sort of motivated. So the first of my tips would really be write that goal statement down, make it tangible, make it visible. The second thing I'd encourage you to do is say it out loud. A little over a year ago, once I decided I was going to go on the DTM journey, I sort of kept it to myself a little bit, because there is this thing about, well, who do you tell? Because depending on who you tell, they'll probably hold you to account, or they'll tell you that you can't do it, that you're not good enough, you never achieve that, you're not good enough to do this. But if you tell the right people, they are your avid supporters. And when you say it out loud, it becomes real. So I don't know if there's any motorsport fans in the room, but when Lewis Hamilton won his 7th World Drivers' title in Istanbul in October 2020, he came parading down the pit lane, talking about visions for kids achieving their goals and all this sort of stuff. But the key parts of what he said, which really resonated with me, is he said, speak it into existence, which I just thought was a fantastic term. Speak it into existence. Say it out loud, it becomes real. And there are a few folks on this call, and I've said to them, I'm going to be a DTM by December 2022. Now, I've made a really bold statement, but I've put it out there, but even by saying it, makes it real, makes it tangible, makes it reachable as well. So far we've got write it down, get some sort of artifacts around, saying it out loud. When, particularly for an introvert, trying to sort of verbalize something like that is incredibly powerful. And it is one of the things that I learned reasonably recently, that, when you do start saying things with purpose, it carries weight and it carries clarity, and it gives you that forward direction of travel. So that's my second tip. My third tip really is all around getting support, and Toastmasters is a phenomenal organization to make that happen, to make it a reality. So I would say get yourself an accountability partner, somebody who you trust. Like I said a short while ago, there's certain people you don't want to share your goals with, because frankly, they will give you a million reasons why you won't achieve it. And the other reason they don't want to support you is because if you do go on to do better and greater things, you're actually, in a sense, separating yourself from them, which may be a good or a not so good thing, but people like to hang on to people who they know. So they use different tactics to do that. But as best as you can, get someone that you trust. And fundamentally, because we're all in this sort of fellowship of Toastmasters, there's no one better than a mentor within your club or your area or your district. Now, mentor can mean many things to many people, but my simple definition is look for someone who's got what you want. Okay, and I would say that generally in life, not just in Toastmasters or anywhere in corporate life, whatever you do, for someone that, embodies the values and the spirit and the belief that you're looking for, use them as a role model. If you've got access to them, start that conversation, ask them how they achieved what they did. They might become that mentoring, guiding spirit. I'll come back to, I've just seen a question in chat from TJ. What's your advice to low self-esteem, confidence? Because this can affect what the goal setter sees as possible. Absolutely, it does. So famous quote from Oprah Winfrey, credited to her, but possibly said by many other people, perhaps including Barack Obama. But what they consistently say is something to the effect of, you become what you believe. Okay, so a lot of this is all about mindset. So if you think you're not good enough, if you think that you're not capable of doing things, you will constantly reinforce that view in your own mind. Whereas we had that really great example from Matty just a little bit earlier, which was the exact opposite belief to that, which is, I'm going to do this and it's going to get me here. And I'm going to then be asked to do something else, which is going to take me here. So it's a virtuous circle rather than a vicious circle. And what I would say, TJ, around that self-esteem and confidence is, do surround yourself with people that build you up, which make you rise. I said earlier that I've been a Toastmaster for a little over 3.5 years. With one or two minor exceptions, I've always walked into a Toastmasters meeting or an event like this or a contest, and only on one or two occasions not felt better when I've left than when I came in. I'm always in a better place. So find the elements in your life where you get that joy, where you get those things that really raise you up. And for me, it's getting energy from people. I was just saying to Danny Banks before I started this evening that fundamentally my career started off in the automotive industry. It was just incredibly task focused. It was fear culture. It was a nightmare. And I thought getting stuff done was all about shouting at people and pointing and prodding and all this sort of stuff. And that wasn't me. It was only when I left that industry I realized, get the people element right and the task bit becomes far easier. I've just seen another thing on there. Tom, I'm going to come back to that if you don't mind, just towards the end. And thanks, by the way, Justin, really great quote from Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're probably right. I think that's fantastic. Another great Henry Ford quote that I love is, quality, or a definition of quality, is doing the right thing even when no one is looking. And how many people really do that? But that is a really great quote as well. Thank you for that, Justin. I just want to go off and finish this, and Tom will come back to your comment there, and we will finish up by 8 o'clock. And of course, we've still got the quiz to finish and a winner to crown. So let's carry on and move forward. So in fact, here we are for the next quiz question. So I'll just give people an opportunity to maybe unlock their phone. I don't want to charge ahead and people not got the opportunity to take part in this. We're 75% of the, well, 50% of the way through the quiz. We're going to be 75% of the way through after this particular question, but hopefully this question will cover some of the stuff that we've already spoken about this evening. So I trust everybody's ready, and here we go. So what two key things do you think we really have control over? Is it ourselves and everyone around us? Is it what other people think and do? Is it our attitude and action? Or is it what others think? Fantastic. I'm really glad. And this just really reinforces to me that the Toastmasters community is so positive in the way that people come through all of the training programs and the socialization and that sort of osmosis of great ideas and sharing thoughts. Absolutely, the only two things we control in our life is our attitude and action. We're being a little bit foolish if we can think we can control other things around us. And I've been incredibly foolish in my life because as I was growing up, I thought I could control a lot more than I actually could. And I'll tell you, I've become a lot calmer and a lot more measured, just recognizing I have to stop here because I can't do anything about these circumstances which are going around me. And that taught me to respond rather than to react to things, which I used to do. So that makes me a bit more of a mindful, calmer person, but really great to the folks that have done that. And I just really wanted to talk for a moment. What others think and do, we have really no control. We might have some influence, but we can't really categorically, know that they can do exactly what we say, which is why for me, command and control, so last century, doesn't actually work. But let's see what that's done to the leaderboard, and let's see if we've still got James in pole position here. And it looks like it probably is. So James, it's all on to the last question, I'm afraid. It's really tight up there. There's enough up there, I think, for any of the top four to take you at this point. It looks like Tom's pulled up with an injury there and no longer taking part, but we do have Sue, who's the fastest, so maybe Sue, you never know. I think it's a bit of a tall order, but maybe for the final question. And this is a really great question. So this is nothing to do with Toastmasters. This is an actual fact question. and it's got a really great story to it that I'll share with you when complete. So it's all about the humble hummingbird. And the question is, what's just the one thing that a hummingbird cannot do? Is it fly backwards? Is it walk? Is it fly upside down? Or can't they smell? What do you think? Okay, well, a range of responses there. I'm glad the majority have got that right. And fundamentally, you can't see on that screen, but they've got very sort of hooked feet. So they're good. They can't even hop. They just clench onto the branches they sit on. The hummingbird is actually a remarkable creature. It's the only bird that can fly upside down. Now, why is that relevant? It's relevant because if you're a scientist and you knew your stuff, you'd be saying to me, it's impossible for any bird to fly upside down. And all I would say to you is, you might be right, but nobody has told the hummingbird. So believe the impossible is possible. So well done to the folks that have got that right. James, I'm really banking on the fact you got that right and got it right in the fastest time. Let's just find out where we're at. James, so it looks like KL might have taken it here just on the very final question. Oh, James, runner up. So sorry about that. And KL, if that is your name or is that the alias, I don't know, but if you can make yourself known to us, just unmute and say, I'm a winner.
I'm a winner.
You're a winner. Is that you, Adil?
That is me, Nigel. How you doing?
You are a winner. Okay. Well, I'll leave it till the end, Adil, and Danny or Brenda will tell you about the fabulous weekend self-catering break in Dudley we got lined up. But I think that was the second prize. So first prize is going to be better than that. So just joking, of course, but Danny will fill you on that in just a moment. But well done, sir. Well done. And so I just finally want to finish off. Apologies, I'm running just slightly a minute or two behind. Just some key reminders for you this evening. I hope you found it valuable. And Tom, I will come back to your comment as well before I finish. But we've talked about goals. We've talked about the importance of having a date. Remember my holidays in Southeast Asia just taking place in my head, because fundamentally I didn't put a date on it. So it's going to remain a dream, you know, these sort of perennial or perpetual goals that just keep coming round because I've taken no action. And in fact, action is the difference that makes a dream a goal as well, because it's only by doing stuff or even by not doing stuff that we learn what works for us. And you know, there's a famous Chinese proverb that I absolutely love, which talks about, you know, the faintest ink is better than the best memory. So I would urge you, we're talking about writing stuff down. A goal not written down is simply just a thought. And if you're anything like me, thoughts come and they go. So please, if you get into a routine of doing anything, just put it on a post-it note, put it somewhere prominent. Make it future focused, make it like, write it like you've achieved it, state specifically what you've done and how you feel. And that will have a massive motivational effect on you. And then finally, a goal with no action, right? A goal with no action. You've thought about something, you might have written it down, you've put a date on it, but if you do not take action, it is simply just an idea. Okay, so it's just there. Nothing's going to bring it to life. You've got to physically do something to do that, which is why fundamentally goals have to be personal, because it's very difficult, as we've talked about already, to get other people to do things. Just be in control of what you can do for yourself. And this now, we've done the quiz. This is just the final question in terms of, you've listened to me for the last hour. I think a vast majority of people were people that do set goals, only a few folks that pretty much don't. Got a couple of people coming in at the moment. So there's, you know, ranging sort of elevation levels there of people that are going to take action. What I am going to do is relate it, if I can get this to work, to an earlier question. Where is it on, where can I see that? On segmentation. So, Okay, well, no surprise really. So what I've done here is the people that are more likely to take action as a result of listening to me, God forbid, are the ones that pretty much at the start of this session were already goal setters or goal getters. And yeah, there's somebody, I think, in here, one person at least, that never set a goal at the start of the session, that's probably a little bit more motivated within themselves to set a smarter goal moving forward. So fundamentally, at the end of the day, if I've had the opportunity of just, sharing something with one person on this call where they're going to take action, that's a great result for me. And it's really good to see that actually, the big Pareto is the fact that most folks are going to take action. So that's really great. Thank you for that. And, I touched on this a little earlier, really. Is it really about the goal? Is it about the achievements? Or is it about the journey that you go through to get there? Talking about Tom and the way he was doing his COT training for VPE, and then moving on to do contest chair. Is it what you learn about that, or is it what you achieve on the way? Personally, I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong answer. There's merits in both, but I think the learning comes pretty much from the journey. And for me, I like quotes. I can't say that I actually wrote this one, but I'm a traveller. I talked about going to Southeast Asia. I do a lot of this stuff in my head. I have been quite fortunate to travel a lot of the world for work and pleasure. And I love this quote. It is from Treasure Island, I believe, from Robert Louis Stevenson. I travel not to go anywhere, just to go. The great affair is to move, and to me, move just speaks of action, just doing something. So that's something that I really do like. And so fundamentally, we started this session about trying to turn your aimless wander into a purposeful chase. And I think, and hope rather, through some of the tips, tools and techniques that I've shared with you, that you've now got something, maybe just one thing that could work for you moving forward, whether it's writing it down, whether it's saying it out loud, whether it's getting an artifact, whether it's getting a mentor, whether it's putting a bit more specifics around it, whether it's just simply just putting a date on it that could make all the difference for yourselves. So as Danny mentioned at the start, I am in Birmingham, boring speakers, not boring speakers, Area Director 39. If you want to reach out to me on anything you've heard this evening in terms of, wanting to understand it a little bit more, or something that you want a little bit more information on, I'm more than happy to have a conversation and a chat on that. There's tons more stuff I could probably share with you this evening. I hope some of what I've shared has resonated with you. My LinkedIn profile is also on there. And I just wanted to just come back to Tom's note here when he mentioned about writing it down on 3x5 cards, putting it in your wallet. Absolutely. Review several times every day. Well, yeah, that's probably more than I would, but actually doing it often is a good thing. It puts it in the memory. Each time you read it as a positive goal statement, absolutely. I think you could probably make an affirmation of it as well. Tom, I know that, when I'm my sort of going to bed ritual when I'm doing my teeth, I sort of think about my positive affirmations and get some goal statements in there. And visualization, absolutely. I remember when I got my first master's degree, I visualized it 2 years into the future. I got it from the old knockdown cathedral in Coventry, because I went to Warwick, and I pictured myself receiving it from the dean of the university with my proud parents watching. And that gave me an immense amount of pride, and that drove me to actually get a distinction in my MSc, which was, at a top university, was something that I was really quite proud of. But having that belief, having that future vision of yourself is vitally important. And what I really like about what you said there, Tom, do it often. And that speaks to me of habit. Make it positive, make it repeatable. And it just becomes an automatic response in the way that you think and feel. Cognitive dissonance, yeah, two opposite pictures in your subconscious mind. It does need certainty. There's a few other things in here. Do not shout, communicate. I hope I wasn't shouting, Clive. Curses to the dastardly hummingbird. I guess that's the one that you got wrong at the end there. And okay, so Justin's dropped off. And yeah, so thanks for the kind messages there. Danny, I just want to hand back to yourself. But before I do so, I just want to say thank you for everyone that's took their time to, I'll stop sharing, by the way, to join this evening. I really appreciate, you know, there's got to be a better thing to do on a Tuesday evening, but I do thank you for that. And Danny, if I could actually come back to yourself, and if you could tell our contest winner the fantastic money can't buy prize that they have won. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Danny,
for
Danny,
Nigel.
just before you start there, could I just say regarding to Nigel, in thanking him for the great session tonight, earlier there in his presentation, he showed a pink elephant. Now, some of us can have this pink elephant in the room, but after he showed that pink elephant, I just went off a camera. The reason for that was because I shoved the pink elephant out the back door and I opened up the front door to a better future in Toastmasters. And thank you, Nigel, for a great presentation.
You're very welcome. In fact, you're all very welcome.
Thank you for that, Matty. And I would just like to say, I don't want to keep you any longer, but thank you for coming tonight. And I think the reason why we come tonight is because it has been a very entertaining and a very informative evening. You know, every time I've heard Nigel and been on one of the training courses, I've learned so much. I've written so much down tonight. And, you know, some of the things, obviously, Nigel said it's common sense, but sometimes common sense needs to be repeated to us so that we begin to understand it. But he is an excellent trainer. We will be putting this video, this recording on YouTube. If there's anything you want to go back to and revisit in the next couple of days, I'll send a link out. You know, what more can I say? I will, the next time you see me, I will be 13 stone at the conference, the next face-to-face conference. I don't think that's till 2030, but I've got time, okay? So I've learned something. There you are, Nigel.
You're going to put a bit of weight on then, Danny, is that what you're doing, yeah?
I'm going to put weight.
Just joking.
Oh, I wish, Nigel, I wish. But thank you very much. Please go back to your clubs and tell them about this training. We're on now up until Easter, the week before Easter. We've got sessions on marketing, growth, club growth mindset. We've got podcasting. We've got something on pathways. So please do encourage your fellow Toastmasters to come. It's quality learning delivered by Toastmasters, and it's free learning. How much would you have paid for that if you'd gone on I can't even speak now, on an online course, you know, or gone to listen to a professional, not that Nigel's not a professional, but somebody who does it, you know, sells that sort of course for a living. So please get the message out there and check your emails, because Brenda emails this topic and how to register. She normally emails it out the weekend before. And talking of that, the prize is Brenda's arranged and she's dropped off the course, but it's anything you wish from the Toastmasters shop. What more can I say? So have a look at the Toastmasters shop. Who's, if the winner just waits on afterwards. And I'm sure, I appreciate people have got to go, but if anybody wants to stay, I'm sure, Nigel, you'll hang around.
Yeah, sure.
For another 10 minutes if you want to discuss anything or ask anything. But thank you very much for attending. I'll see you all hopefully next week. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nigel. That was brilliant. Good night.
Oh, you're very welcome, Patricia. So Adil, I think the only kicker about the Toastmaster store, you've got to go and fetch it yourself from America.
Oh yeah. So who? Adil, you won.
Oh yes, it was me. I am
Okay. Right.
Kala, by the way, my nickname is Superman's Kryptonian name. If you're a fan of comics and all that.
The only Batman I know is the one from the 1960s, when it was a lie. It wasn't a cartoon or anything, and it was Batman and Robin. I used to watch it as a wee child.
The TV series.
Yeah.
No.
That's the one.
Yes.
Can't beat it.
The problem is that Superman wears his underpants outside his trousers.
I don't think you get away
So
with
do
it.
I. So do I. No.
Sorry, Cameron, can we
Well done.
stop recording now? Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Nigel, and good night, gentlemen.